Hello and welcome to another episode of Played with Meg and Mike. We just had our very intense Final Four tribal council where April had immunity. She chose Graham to go to the Final Three with her, and John and Jordan competed in a do-or-die head-to-head trivia match to earn the third spot in the Final Three. And unfortunately for the family and for me, because I'm his biggest fan, we're sitting here with Jordan, who followed up his third place finish last game with a fourth place finish, which is still exceptional, even if he didn't make the end.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Sad to be here with you both, but happy to chat with you both.
That was a very intense moment for everyone, I think. And I think that it was a really strong showing from everyone.
Appreciate that.
So, what do you want to talk about first? Do you want to start back in time and work our way forward, or do you want to kind of work our way back from this moment?
I'm open. I'm ready. I'm ready to answer questions, to talk about the game. I think the one thing I will say to kind of start this off is everything about this game for me was completely different than the last game. The amount of engagement I had, the amount of fun I had, not to say I didn't have fun the last time, but, the intensity, the different types of conversations, the video made a huge difference and I think created an amazing element to the game. So kudos for adding that. And, it's kind of fitting the way that I lost just because of how intense I was feeling. Like, you get down to the wire, it's one question, do or die, and you blow it. So, anyway, I just wanted to kind of start that off by saying this has been a wild ride.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. And I want to ask a little bit more about that as well. But just for anybody who hasn't watched the other video yet, which I don't know why that would be, but Jordan and John just competed in a series of trivia questions. It was tied 6-6, first to 7. Was the winner, and John won, and Jordan got the wrong answer there, and that's why Jordan's sitting here instead of John. That was a new twist to this game, kind of that live challenge, but I think it was a great idea, if I do say so myself.
Yeah.
And so did you really feel it in the heart?
Oh yeah, it was good. I love that format. I was expecting, kind of anything else. I thought it was going to be, live trivia question or like figure this out. I didn't think too much about having a pitcher be the challenge, but that would have been pretty funny, having somebody come
running around
and trip and fall and like drop the items and like try and get to their computer. It was cool. It was definitely intense. And especially, one, I'm glad you kicked the jury out. Sorry, jury. But sometimes you're distracting. It was even more intense watching Graham and April's faces in between like the questions. I'm like, fuck, I don't want to let them down. Like, I don't want to let myself down. Like, it was pretty cool.
Meg, what was it like to watch? Yeah,
I would have choked 100%. I hid my camera because I was like, and I just know that you didn't need that energy in your life. That was so fun. It was so stressful. I would have ate shit on that for sure. I'm bad under pressure.
They do challenges like that in Big Brother all the time. They have everyone up in a line and they're just like twisting the thing to say true or false. And so I got it from there. I just thought about that today. I was going to do the running around doing a picture challenge, but I'd used it for the last idol. Mm-hmm. So let's go back in time a little bit, talk about Fire and Ice, where you finished third, and you played with Meg the whole game long.
Yeah.
What was that like, working with Meg while she was running shit with Stevie? And any hard feelings that she took the easy route and took Becky to the end?
No hard feelings at all. It was great. One of the things about, Fire and Ice and working with Meg was, which I think I came into this game with a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, was I didn't feel like I contributed a lot. I felt like I was, part of the conversations and part of the, the alliance and the team and friendship. But I don't ever think I was very integral in any aspect. And, you know, I don't fault Meg at all for not taking me. So, you know,
Thank you.
yeah, yeah. So, you know, it was fun. I learned a lot. It was my first, you know, Survivor Hamilton. I had no idea what to expect. I was playing with Claudia at the time, not at that time, but, you know, in that game, which
And
adds a
Graham.
completely, well, yeah, and Graham, of course, but it adds a completely different dynamic, you know, playing with your partner and, you know, not really knowing literally anybody else in that game except Graham. So it was, like I said, it was a completely different experience than this one for me.
And so you came in this time right off the bat wanting to play differently?
Yeah, I think mentally I wanted to. I didn't show it, and I didn't make, you know, any, you know, loud noises or moves. Not that I think I could have, but I didn't.
Well, there wasn't a reason to early too, right? When you guys won all those challenges.
Well, and we had a lot of strong competitors and a lot of big voices, like a lot of big personalities, a lot of deep history, friendships, families, you know, on different tribes. So there was no reason for me to try and do anything. It was more just consume the information, learn about the different people, try and figure out dynamics. You know, where do I fit? Where don't I fit? That was just really my first few challenges, was trying to figure out, you know, the lay of the land. How is all of this going to work out, especially when, you know, it's a faster concept this year. We don't have a lot of time between challenges, and, you know, there's so many people. How can you possibly reach out to everybody, build these connections? So it's a lot. It's a lot to digest right off the bat.
What was it like early in the game to watch Navala go and know Ian and April and Jim were over there fighting? Was it just kind of fun to watch? How much did you talk with Ian about it?
I talked with Ian a lot about it. Ian, I still wish Ian was in this game for a longer period of time. And he's such a competitor. Like, he's a very smart guy. He's such a competitor. And he was really into this game. Like, he just loved it. And so I talked to him a lot, and, you know, we were working on trying to be quiet at the beginning, like, you know, not too much Survivor Hamilton around my sister or like Claudia or like whatever, like try and manage, you know, being on our phones all the time. But I think watching that unfold was just kind of, you know, it was interesting. It was kind of fun. You don't want to see anybody go home, especially anybody that you know. But you know, it's interesting to see, especially because we were winning so much. It was just like, well, it sucks to be you guys.
So there was a point in the game after the tribe swap where I think I challenged you, and maybe I didn't need to, but I challenged you a little bit to be, maybe, I don't know if it's more visible, but just not play like last game, right? Is to be a little bit more aggressive. And in the back of my mind, what I was saying was go after Kyle. And even though I never said that, obviously, but what you did instead was you became active by joining with Kyle and voting Cowan out. Which was exactly. So, you know, talk a little bit about that decision, because we haven't really got into your head much about that, because we've seen, you know, the other people get voted out, and we know that he was working so closely with Chelsea, but we haven't kind of seen it from your perspective and what you were, you know, what your plan was with that in long term.
Yeah. So, and you're right. You didn't phrase it, you know, like that. You were a little bit more, you know, nonchalant about it. It was kind of just like, you know, are you going to stay like this, or are you going to, you know, change your way, or, you know, how's that working out for you? So it was weird. So that vote, for me, was like an explosion. Like, it was not supposed to go that way. Not that, you know, the plan, unfortunately, wasn't to take Cowan out. It was the way that it was supposed to happen was more of a, you know, my whole thing on that was to try and protect Graham. And my relationship with Kyle at that point, I thought, was he wasn't working with anybody else. We were developing a relationship. We were, you know, chatting a little bit more about strategy, Chelsea and I had been talking from the beginning of the game, and we felt like, okay, maybe this would be a good opportunity for us to solidify a stronger like 4, and then potentially get Sharon to get voted out. But then, at the last minute, it was, well, we don't want to get, Sharon involved. And then, so it all just kind of spiraled into a bit of a weird, revote situation where we end up losing Graham's trust almost immediately, and then ultimately end up getting Graham voted out. So I think it was supposed to be a little bit more of a, let's build a solid performance-based alliance. And I also didn't want to just ride Cowan and Graham's coattails. So it was definitely not a smart move on my part to, I don't think I thought all of these pieces through, but it was really the first, big decision that we had to make as a group, because we had just been losing. Or I think that was like when we started losing.
Yeah. Well, and we have hindsight now where we know that Chelsea and Kyle were working the closest together, and also that they had to deal with Peter, right, to make those moves happen. Yeah. So it's hard to hold it against you. I think Cowan's probably the only one who holds it against you, because he wanted to have, and like he wanted you and Graham and Paul to work together.
Yeah, and it sucks, right? Because you get into your head a little bit where you're like, you take for granted those like unspoken alliances. So it was like, I didn't talk to Cowan very much. It was kind of, okay, this is what we can do. Okay, I'll call you later. Like, we didn't talk on the phone, I think maybe once or twice. And, I have nothing but respect for Cowan. I've been talking to Cowan more after he left than I ever did before. Bouncing ideas off him. He's such a positive guy. He's such a great guy. So it was definitely not a personal thing. It was just the way that it ended up happening. Like I said, that vote, I think was...
You wanted Sharon out. That was the plan going into the vote.
Well, yeah, and then I ended up changing my vote anyway, and Sharon got voted out because of me changing my vote, and kind of, we'll talk about being in the middle a little bit, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But that wasn't my personal thing was not to try and get Cowan out. It was more of like, how can we solidify a strong performance-based alliance with the group that we have?
Right. And that just wasn't the same goal that the other people had, which is fair. And then when Graham got voted out, I remember how pissed you were in that moment, and then obviously beyond, but you jumped out of the video super fast. Like, were you like really angry when that happened? Just at least for a moment?
Yeah, like I definitely let my emotion, take over in that respect. And I had to kind of check myself a little bit and be like, okay, just relax yourself. Like, this is a game. But, part of this game is, you take things personally. So, I think at that moment, and this, the title of this video is so fitting, because at that moment I was like, wow, you just got so played, like you're an absolute fool. And then I started thinking about the Cowan vote and like my relationship with Chelsea, and like, my conversations with Kyle, which were like, oh, I don't have a relationship with Chelsea. Can you like maybe message her? And I was like, wow, this is all such bullshit. And, good on them for being able to be so, under the radar about it, and probably laughing about all these side conversations, behind my back probably. But, it's part of the game. And at that point I was like, wow, you gotta figure it out. You just got your boy voted off, and it's time to maybe think a little bit more about some of these decisions that you're making and who you're making them with.
So when Graham got voted, so the moment we're talking about was immediately before the merge, and you went into the merge basically a free agent.
Correct.
Right, in your mind. So what was your thought process? Like, even though Graham came in like a few days later, but like, what was your thought process going into the merge? What did you want to, who did you want to work with? What did you want to do?
So I didn't have really a thought process or a plan in place, because one of the things that Graham had told me before the merge, which was like great advice, was, he had been talking with Chris, and like, we had, discussed, working with Chris, and he's like, when you get to the merge, he's like, reach out to Chris and chat with Chris. And so I didn't think too much of it. I don't think I had talked to him almost at all before the merge. And so when I got to the merge, I was like, I am just a sitting duck. Like, I have no real alliances, haven't, connected with April really at all. Like, we chatted a little bit once we got to the merge, just to say like, hey, let's not go after each other, which we wouldn't have anyway. So I really didn't know what was going to happen, and I didn't have a plan. And then I started chatting with Chris a little bit more, and like, understanding a little bit more about how people were starting to develop their, voting strategies. And you learn so much the day of the challenge or of the tribal council, but also in like the afternoon on the day before, because people just start saying crazy things and start trying to pull intel from you and try and, and you just have to be really aware of like who you're speaking to, what exactly that you said, and then where you're hearing that from next. And right before Elliot left the second time, he was really good at asking direct questions. And it almost made you feel uncomfortable, because you're like, should I tell you these exact responses? Like, I don't want to tell you, but if I don't, like, we don't have any trust? Like, do I even care if we have trust? So you have to really understand, how the questions are being asked of you, how you answer them, and listen to what people are saying, or I guess read what people are saying, to know like where you stand, because it's really friggin' difficult.
Did you know that Elliot was gunning for you really hard when he came back in the game?
So I did, but I didn't really believe it, in the sense that I felt like he was kind of gunning for everybody, just to try and see who was going to bend, or who was going to just be like, oh yeah, no problem. Like, I'll switch my vote, or I'll change, alliances. But yeah, I knew that my name had been thrown around, and I knew that he had brought my name into it, which it didn't bug me.
No, and he had immunity, and so he was kind of throwing everything at the wall, and then I think that was just a big day.
I will say before your next question, sorry to interrupt. I will say though that he didn't know at that time that I actually didn't vote for him when he got voted out. I voted for Dave, so he thought it was somebody else, and he hadn't been confirmed by me that it actually wasn't me. So whether or not it was true, he did mention, hey, did you vote for me that tribal council? And I was like, no. And he's like, okay. So I don't know if he actually was like, okay, maybe I don't want to, put Jordan's name into this as much anymore, or if it was just like, well, it doesn't really matter, but at least I know that he didn't vote for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it was Chelsea, Cowan, Dave, and Kyle voted for Elliot in that one. So Elliot leaves and Graham comes back in. Are you excited about that? Like, do you think that helps your game, or do you think it actually makes your game more complicated?
I was worried that he was going to be pissed, and he was potentially going to not trust me at all. And so I was worried that it was going to hurt my game, because I didn't really know enough people or have enough connections with those that were still, those that were still around to maybe go far enough in the game. But then we started talking, and we quickly realized that, he didn't have, or he wasn't expressing to me that he had too many hard feelings about it. And so I realized that it was going to be a good thing for my game if we were able to, work, I guess, together, but also a little independently. Because at that point I was ready to kind of make my own decisions, make my own moves. And I was already, chatting with a couple different people.
So at that point is when you started playing the middle. And did you watch Brian's video the other day or yesterday or 2 days ago? He tried to make the case that he was playing the middle, but it was like a good playing the middle. And like you and Paul were playing the middle, but you were doing it the wrong way. Like, how do you unpack that? And so what was your strategy, and what do you think about what Brian said in his video?
Yeah, like I think Brian was obviously thinking about his personal game, so he didn't want to criticize his game too much, and I'm sure he was rattled that he had just been voted out. But you play the middle, you play the middle. You're not. I understand the difference between making outright promises and then lying and doing that kind of stuff. But I don't think Paul was doing that, and I definitely wasn't doing that. So is there a huge difference between what Brian was doing and what we were doing? Absolutely not. He was making the same types of conversations. In fact, I actually think he was making more deals and more promises to the other side or other people than I ever was. I was just like talking to people from both sides, trying to figure out, is this going to be the right strategy? Is this something that I really want to do? And like I said, I was really wanting to make sure that I was playing a good game, and I felt good about my game. I didn't want to go to somebody and be like, 100%, I promise you we're doing this, and then be like, haha, I lied to you. It was more, everybody's trying to play this, don't want to say too much, don't want to say too little, and we just happened to be in a pretty good spot that we had people on both sides that were looking for us to try and help sway some votes. And
I want to see somebody make one of those charts with like true, neutral, lawful, neutral, and just see like what people think about who are the good middle players and who are like the true evil players.
Yeah,
it's just a call.
That's a good point.
Action for the teammates.
And and maybe like I said, maybe I have a different perspective of how I was playing, because I'm sure that Graham, I can say pretty positively that April was definitely not happy with me on a few votes and probably felt like I outright lied to her. So it's all in the eye of the beholder, and I could easily, be, making my game sound a little bit better than it really was to different people from their perspective. So I totally get it. I just think there isn't really like this line where it's like, you're either in the middle and you're like doing it the right way. It's kind of like, if you're in the middle, you're in the middle, and you got to figure it out. Because anyway.
Well, and I was thinking too about this. Well, I was actually hanging out with Callan watching the Leafs game last night, and unfortunately, and if you're talking to two different alliances, you're playing in the middle. Like if Chelsea was talking to you and Cowan and Graham about what you guys wanted to do, and she was also talking with Kyle about those things, she may have known she was with Kyle all along.
Yes.
But that's still playing both sides. That's still playing the middle, right? Just because you always voted with Kyle, you're still kind of getting information from both sides. And then just because every vote, you basically have to decide where you're going to go. But in between those votes, you're just talking with everybody. And that's really what you should be doing.
Exactly.
But you could make the case about everybody that that's how everybody plays, unless you're Peter, who only talks with, your people.
Yeah.
Right. So talk a little bit about what, during that time, you also met Peter a couple times. You also hung out with him.
Yeah. I obviously lived down the street from Peter, and I think just through, it was actually maybe you that brought it up. You were like, there's a few of the boys live kind of in Burlington or like close by. Peter's one of the guys that lives by you. You guys should get together and have some beers. And so, we had beers a few times, absolute beauty. And it definitely was hard for me. And I was actively trying not to vote for Peter, although I did vote for him the first time and he was rattled. But that was when I think he got 8 votes and he was counting them on his
Everybody
finger.
voted for him.
Everybody voted for him, and it was brutal. But it was great. It was great to have beers with them. I think that helped maybe open the door to what the bastards, everybody thought the bastards were. And it was like, okay, maybe, maybe there's a way that I can, get to know some of these guys a little bit more, and maybe that will help, get a little bit further in this game. But no, it was great to have some beers with Peter, for sure.
So, right around after Peter got voted out, and it's been made clear to us now that even Chris and James were like considering voting Peter out too. So like he wasn't necessarily as much with Chris, James, and John, even as you were at that point.
Yeah.
There was that vote that you and Paul had basically switched sides, and then you got pulled back. So this is kind of what why playing the middle, while you got accused of that a little bit too, is like because you jumped to both sides.
Yeah.
Depending on the votes. And so without getting I know you might not want to get too much into detail, but just what was that vote like, and how bad did it feel to kind of leave Paul out on that side?
Yeah, it was awful. I even called Paul before and talked to him, and I was like, dude, this sucks. I'm doing a solid for Graham, and it wasn't the way that it was supposed to go. And I won't get into any of those specifics, but there was like an original plan where Graham, Chris, and Paul and I and James and John were going to try and work closer together, and I think that would have been a strong alliance to try and move through the game, because we would have been able to get information from both sides, and it wouldn't have been an obvious alliance, and it would have been, I think, a pretty strong and powerful way to have some big say in those tribal councils. So then when Graham started working more closely with Brian and Kyle in April, I made a decision to stick with Graham and for that vote, and didn't feel great, but I told Paul, I was like, I got to go on this side for this vote. Sorry, Paul. Did
you feel like you owed Graham one just from getting him voted out earlier too, a little bit?
Yeah, 100%. You can't, and I said it, I think I said it a couple times in tribal councils. I don't blame Kyle. I don't blame, Chelsea. Like, that's on me. That's not the type of person that I am. Like, I told you, I felt like I got played, and for all intents and purposes, I for sure was. And so that was something that I felt, I wanted to try and make it up to my cuz.
And then immediately after that, you had your shining moment of the game, right? Talk to us a little bit about using your idol on James and getting Kyle out of here, which is honestly, if I'd been playing, Kyle would have been the first person out of the game, because like you don't let a winner win twice.
Yeah,
that's why I didn't play the game, and I'll never play again.
Yeah, Meg would have been. She said that.
To Kyle's credit, though, he can build relationships with people, and he can strategize, and his whole, not to, I hope this doesn't come out as a negative way, but his whole, one vote at a time, and I never think, it's like, come on, bro, like, what's going on. You've got multiple people that you're working with. Like, you're a smart dude, and he didn't let a lot of people. He didn't let on as much as what was really going on. So it was a toss up. Like, I was wanting to keep that for myself, obviously in a selfish way, but I knew that with Kyle and Brian being so close, and April and Brian being so close, I was the bottom of that alliance. So regardless of if I were
the bottom of both.
Well, I didn't feel like I was the bottom of the other one, because I was speaking and chatting with Chris so often, and we had developed a good, a good relationship. So I honestly didn't feel like I was at the bottom. And so for me, it was like, okay, if I take Kyle out, it takes, and Sharon was gone, it takes another person away from Brian and April. And although, I'm weakening their alliance, I'm not directly voting for Graham or April, and I'm not going to be the next target. So it just seemed like the right thing to do if we could have pulled it off, because we were not sure if we could or not. And luckily we did.
Was that fun making that move? Like, did it feel good to make that work?
Yeah, it was good. Like anytime that you can, have a big vote or, make a connection that has an impact in the game, you feel good because you feel like you're active in the game. Like I definitely didn't want to just be, checking my phone at 6:00 and be like, okay, that's who I'm voting for. Cool. Like, what's the point? What's the point of playing in the game if you're not going to, stir some stuff up and, hurt some feelings in the game? Obviously, you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings in real life. But yeah, it was cool. I liked it.
And then how surprised were you about the vote after that, where Graham nullified Chris's idol and Brian used the vote steal?
So I knew that something was going to happen, and I knew that they hadn't trusted me. That they had lost trust in me. So I didn't know what was going to happen, but I definitely wasn't confident, with that vote. I think Chris was worried about it. Like, we knew there was just too much in the game in terms of like rewards. We knew Graham had an idol, but we just didn't know what was going to happen. And Graham, such a fucker, sorry for swearing, but he like messaged me like in I think in the middle of tribal before you started doing the votes. He's like, ready to see some shit. And I was like, oh no, here we go. So I didn't expect all of that to happen. I think that was a like crazy way to have Chris go, but I was expecting to see something.
And I don't know if you watched Kyle and Chelsea's played game over videos, excuse me, but he said, I wish I had helped Jordan win the tournament instead of Graham. I don't know if you heard that, but, and we can talk about that later, or maybe ask Graham a question about that when it comes to the jury time. But it seemed like Kyle helped Graham win the final question, where you just guessed. You got frazzled and guessed really quickly, and Graham got it exactly right. So, the only reason I bring that up is that was the reward he used.
Exactly.
Was that one, and then that changed really the complexity of the game, because then James was out and John has had to kind of earn his way, right, to stay in the game. But obviously winning that idol to get that in the middle of the night, we talked about that like just the other day, obviously, but that sent Brian home. But were you still pretty worried about Graham and April and like in your chances of getting to the final two?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think I overthought all of this too much when we got to the top 5. I knew April and Graham were going to be, working together as far as they could. I couldn't tell you if it was the 3 of them, like Brian, April, and Graham, if April would have taken Graham or if April would have voted to kick Brian off. Like, I can't tell you how that would have happened, like who April would have sided with, Graham or Brian. But I don't think I thought too far into, the final 2, because so much has happened and so much can happen in any challenge, and you just need to, work hard and not make a mistake. So every time that I made a mistake this game, not every time, but, I can count probably 4 or 5 mistakes that I made that if I hadn't made that little mistake, I would have won tribe. I would have won the challenge. Or I would have won this reward. And it was so frustrating to be like, one number off, or like, 5 seconds off or whatever. Like, being second is brutal.
How much of that has to do with the fact that like every challenge is for the most part completely different, and you don't know what they're going to be before they come in? Like, would it be better if they were more consistent? Like the rules were always the same, but just the questions were different, or do you like that sort of variety?
Yeah, I like the variety for sure. The window makes it really intense, because when you're expecting it also makes it really time consuming, to be perfectly honest, because you're like, you need to be on or around your phone for, for that time period between 5 and 9. I did like the variety though. I loved it. I loved and I even loved when you gave us options, like, do you want, math logic or the photo? I think it gives people an equal playing field in those respects, because, people are different and have different strengths. So I wouldn't have changed the challenges at all. I would have, which I don't think is even, even something that you can do. There's like these little, I guess, intricacies, like little like bullshit things that people can argue about, or like, I interpreted it this way or whatever. Like you probably can't get away from any of that unless you were to do like a consistent, this is the answer. It's very, straightforward. But personally, I liked it.
Well, and part of that's me too, just with my own work schedule and just juggling real life too. It's like sometimes I don't get to the questions until like I'm writing the post like an hour before the thing, or sometimes I wouldn't even know what question I'm going to ask until it's already 5, like it's already 6.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And it's like, and so I'll look it over. I'll get Sandra to look at it maybe, and it's like, you do. This was the 29th immunity challenge, but then there was all the reward challenges as well. And it's like, damn, I'm going to make some mistakes as well and leave things open to interpretation. But that's part of the reason why, I'd like to either make something more consistent next time or have someone else just do it and take that heat. Someone else can take the heat.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
So, if you can, we would have bought you a bigger hammock if we knew how much work this was going to be at the beginning of the game.
It's great. Yeah, but, thank you. I've gotten a lot of use out of that. And it'll be set up for the barbecue or for the pizza queue.
Like, I don't know. I'm sure you'll figure out something. But if you can find a way to relieve yourself of some of that stress while still making it, I think having that variety, it adds a crazy cool dynamic. And it throws like strong competitors off each challenge, because they're not,
that was the goal.
So you don't have like one person just running table the whole first half of the show.
Yeah, and that was exactly the goal. Like you can tell when certain players start to kind of get it and get the rhythm, and they know what's coming, or they've been consistent. And I tried to not have, and because the same people were winning the rewards, right? Like the Kyles and the Bryans were winning the rewards, and I was like, I got to get someone else a shot at these. So are you pretty proud of yourself for getting all the way out of 30 players, getting to 4th place?
Yeah, I feel good. Like I said, this was a fun game. I made some great friends. I made some, good connections with people. I feel like I talked to almost everybody minus, small handful of people that either got voted off really quickly or just, I had no really reason to chat with them. I feel like I did better than I expected I was going to do. Even though, I like to tackle things with this, like, crush this, like be very confident, like do all that stuff. Like there's a level of humility that you need to have in a game like this, because if you start feeling, and I forget who said it, maybe it was Cowan. I don't remember who said it, but somebody said it best. They're like, as soon as you think you have this game figured out is when you get blindsided. When you start feeling full of yourself and start feeling like, oh, I know how this vote's going to go, it's like you're getting voted out. So you need to have that level of, and it's like a healthy paranoia, but it's like you need to have that level of balance. And I think it starts with humility.
Right on, man. So who do you think of April, Graham, and John played the best game and will, is likely to receive the most jury votes? No matter who kind of gets there, like who do you?
Yeah, it's tough. Like, so it's tough because I don't know. I didn't probably follow John's game like close enough to really know the types of, people he was talking with, or like how he's viewed in this game by other people in the jury. But I do know that, he has a great reputation because he's a great challenge guy. He's a super nice guy, and he's a stand-up guy. Like he I was trying to get him to vote for Brian, which would have gone to a 3-3 tie, which would have gone to revote or gone to rocks. And he was like, no, I told Brian that I wasn't going to vote for him and I was going to work for him on this vote because he told me he was going to work with me. And then, Brian flipped on him and voted James. And I was like, dude, like, are you ready to start trying to work to get you into the finals or what? So,
and Brian's good at that. To Brian's credit, he does a great job of scrambling.
Oh, completely. Like 100%. I give him all the credit in the world for that. So, I think John has a great story. And I think if he makes it to the final two, the jury's going to recognize that he's had an uphill battle. Whereas, and not to take anything away from April and Graham, they had a great alliance. They had a super, super strong, group of people in their alliance, but they've been shown up in these last challenges. Like, April winning immunity and then them not working together, but working together has been good for both of their games. I think maybe the jury might see that as maybe a negative on them, but they've got a lot of their people in the jury as well. So it's going to be tough. I'm happy to see anybody win, and I know that's such a shitty answer, but I think all three of them deserve to be there.
Well, and I was thinking that today too. Last game, like when it was Meg and Becky, like clearly Meg was going to win that. If it had been you and Meg, it probably still would have been Meg. Right? Whereas this game, no matter which combination of the four of you made it to the final two, it was probably going to be close.
I think so too.
And that was really interesting. So do you want Graham and April to make the final two, or is it, or do you have, would you I don't know, appreciate the chaos of John in there?
Yeah. So like the gamesman in me wants to see chaos. I want to see, how this next, how this is going to play out, and would love to see John in the final with, either April or Graham. But the friend in me, the cousin in me, thinks it's cool that they would be able to be in the finals together. I'd have to say that I hope Graham wins over April. No disrespect to April, but he getting him voted out and then having him come back and having this run is a pretty cool story. So I think that'd be cool to see.
Right on, man. Well, I think again, like, you played a great game. Obviously there were some highs and lows, but that's the game. And you got super far, and that's more exciting, I think, than being in a one alliance the whole way through.
Yeah.
So any media recommendations or anything that you've been, I know sports is on, but half of sports is over already.
Yeah, no, I'm between Survivor, Hamilton, and work. How can you watch anything on TV? All jokes aside, I've just been watching sports and haven't gone into any new shows. I'm rewatching Making a Murderer again, just because Claudia and I
you want to get so angry at law enforcement all over again.
Yeah, just like we like true crime a lot, and we were just looking for something to watch the other night. When you're just like scrolling through, you're like, oh, there's nothing that we're interested in, so we just put it on. But I didn't realize how friggin' addictive it was. Like, I hadn't watched it since I watched it originally, like when it first came out at Christmas, like years ago. So yeah, nothing really, just watching sports and cried myself to sleep last night. So.
Right on, man. Well, thanks for doing this. Thanks for playing again and putting all the time in, and for playing much more aggressive and active game this year too. Like, that's fun for you, but it's way more fun for me as well.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. I appreciate all that you've done and what Sandra's done as well, and loved playing this game, and appreciate the time that you've taken to chat with me today.
Wow. Well, thanks, man. I'm looking forward to seeing you on Saturday. You and Claudia. Claudia coming?
I don't think so, but
okay.
I'll definitely be seeing you guys.
All right, cool, man. We'll see you then. Enjoy the rest of the night, the rest of the week, and start thinking about who you want to vote for.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Mike.
All right. Peace, man.
Bye.
Love you, brother.
Love you, buddy.